The most fascinating character in Apple TV's Foundation series isn't the creator of the Foundation. It isn't the triumvirate of clones that have ruled over the Empire for centuries. It isn't even the Mule, who also serves as Pilou Asbæk's redemption as a villain. It's actually a robot who has lurked in the shadows for countless millennia and guided humanity with her nurturing and destructive hand. Introduced as an aide to the Empire in Season 1, Eto Demerzel seemed like a diminutive existence at the time, but when Season 2 came to an end, it was revealed that she's actually the true ruler of the Galactic Empire, and has been for years beyond count. Her relationship with the Empire and the many Cleon clones is explained by her physical nature because Demerzel is, above all else, a robot. And in this video, we'll answer some of the biggest burning questions about her anatomy, because some of the things we see her do in Foundation just shouldn't be possible for her. With that in mind, let's get right into it. This is Demerzel's Anatomy Explained. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we do have a very small request. If you enjoy our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. A robot in the midst of men. Eto Demerzel's true identity. It's no secret by now that Eto Demerzel is the last living robot in the Foundation series. But the thing that makes her continued existence so tricky to navigate is the sheer amount of changes that have been made to her character and her backstory. That's because the show tells us that she was captured during an event called the Robot Wars, where humanity went to war with its own creations. But in Isaac Asimov's original work, there was no such thing, at least not definitively speaking. Asimov was an explorer of the human condition and how robots could improve it instead of replacing it. Many of his stories, including the Foundation series, evolved to explore the idea of how it would be better to leave robots in charge of human fate, because unlike people, they don't suffer from the problems of avarice and individuality. In one of his short stories, titled The Inevitable Conflict, he explores the idea of robots being better guides for humanity's fate. These days, there's a high level of focus on humanizing robots, like we see in Seth MacFarlane's sci-fi series The Orville, for instance. One of its major characters, Isaac, is a purely logical being whose adaptive protocols end up making him more human by the end of Season 3. The Orville focuses on the binary nature of computation, where only one of two logical choices can be made. And it tracks Isaac's journey as he unlearns this method of computation and adopts human-like complexity. Conversely, Asimov took the path of explaining why humans would never be able to fully save themselves from themselves, because in The Inevitable Conflict, he brings up robotic interference in human affairs as a means of exposing the latter. The world is a vast and diverse tapestry of human thoughts and emotions, but it is those thoughts and emotions that keep it trapped within a cycle of self-destruction that repeats itself every century or so. In The Inevitable Conflict, it's revealed that the robots that control the economic systems of Earth are making deliberate mistakes in their computations to save the planet from the actions of a few individuals. And the closing debate is about whether this is good or bad. One character argues that it's bad because it takes human will out of human life, but another argues that this is good because robots, with their superior computational skills and more efficient resource utilization, can bring about the peace we could never hope to achieve. This story is unrelated to Eto Demerzel's origins, but we bring it up to point out how the source material is more philosophical in nature, whereas the TV show turns things into a simple good versus evil dynamic. In Asimov's work, Demerzel's original identity is Daniil Oliva, a humaniform robot who lives on Earth and works alongside Detective Elijah Bailey to solve crimes. Daniil, much like Isaac, is able to overcome his binary computational models through his observation of Bailey. He comes to realize that it's better to convert evil to good rather than destroy it entirely, which is basically the answer Isaac arrives at when he decides to rebel against his own species, which harbors malign intent towards biologicals. Over the course of several years, Daniil finds himself in the middle of a quandary over the continued existence of mankind and decides to put into motion several schemes designed to ensure their collective survival. One of these schemes is to pose as the first minister of Galactic Emperor Cleon I, which is about the only place where show Demerzel and book Demerzel's narratives intersect. In the books, Daniil adopts the identity of Demerzel to manipulate Cleon while setting the stage for Hari Seldon's development of psychohistory. But in the show, she was a captive of the Robot Wars and the last robot in existence when Cleon I found her in the Hall of the Mural of Souls. Her decision to serve the Empire was enforced, not independent, and she has been living at Trantor well beyond her novelistic scope. We're pointing this out to say that Demerzel's backstory is very different from her origins, and maybe we'll explore that in another video someday. But now that we've established how Apple TV's foundation simplifies things and negates the philosophical aspect of human and machine coexistence, which is a necessary context for this video, let's get down to Demerzel's actual anatomy itself. Metal never dies. The physical anatomy of Demerzel and her speculative age. One of the most visceral sights from Apple TV's foundation was the scene where Cleon I discovered Demerzel. Her body was sliced apart and kept in a permanent stasis to prevent her from taking any sort of decisive action against her captors, and it was also a means of torture, for without her assembled body she was useless. But because Demerzel is a robot, she managed to survive 5,000 years of captivity, during which the Galactic Empire gleaned several secrets about her body off of her and applied it to their own machines to improve their efficiency. In truth, Demerzel is an entity that has existed for over thrice the amount of time that she was imprisoned, and it's all thanks to her nature as an inorganic being. In the novels, Daniel Olivaw was created as the first humaniform robot in history. Up until its creation, robots looked a lot like what we imagined them to be, metal casings with computer chips and motherboards embedded inside. But with Olivaw's creation, a brand new possibility emerged. Robots that looked, sounded, and even acted a lot like humans. While the details of Daniel's hardware are never touched upon, we can speculate that it included non-ferrous metals, to say the least, given the nature of a robot's existence. Robots were created primarily to serve humanity, and as such would require bodies that can withstand decay and corrosion. Ferrous metals are especially prone to rusting, but non-ferrous metals like aluminum, gold, chromium, and titanium are not. In fact, titanium alloys are used primarily to create spacecraft in our own world because of their exceptional ability to withstand harsh conditions. Titanium alloys are incredibly strong for their weight, allowing spacecraft designers to reduce overall mass without compromising structural integrity, leading to fuel savings and improved performance. Titanium is highly resistant to corrosion from various sources, including seawater and chemicals, which is vital for the long-term durability of spacecraft components. Titanium can withstand a wide range of temperatures from cryogenic to 400 degrees Celsius, making it suitable for various spacecraft components, and titanium can also withstand radiation exposure, which is a significant factor in space environments. Everything we've just said about titanium is also true for aluminum, whose alloys are used alongside titanium to create sturdy structures that can survive for decades on end. And gold is also often used in spacecraft to insulate the heating effect of their core processors. All of these metals can be seen in that harrowing scene from Season 1, where Demerzel rips her face off in frustration, and you witness her true robotic body with a bit of a golden sheen to it. This scene serves a dual purpose in terms of this video, because it shows us that Demerzel's skin isn't truly skin, it's a synthetic material that can perfectly mimic skin, and she seems to have pain receptors embedded in her body based on her reaction to tearing off her own face. Also, given that Foundation society is supposed to be futuristic, the use of nanotechnology in her body cannot be overlooked. It's made abundantly clear to us that each of the Cleon clones cannot suffer true physical damage, because if they do, their bodies will repair themselves using the nanobots that Demerzel has implanted within them. It's not an exaggeration to think that Demerzel might have similar hardware embedded within her own body, because after all, she's the one who engineered the Cleon clones to be essentially undying. In Season 3, we see that Demerzel houses the Prime Radiant Harry Seldon gave her within her own body using technology that looks a lot like nanotech, and she also utilizes part of herself as a holographic projector, which was a brand new concept in Asimov's time. This also aligns with the evolution of Daniel in the books, because over the millennia, it adapted and evolved its own body by incorporating newer and more recent hardware into it. So, putting all these factors together, we can accept her claim that she's 18,000 years old, because across those 18,000 years, she would have given herself enough hardware updates to keep pace with the times. So, if she's completely inorganic in terms of her physical composition, this raises an interesting question with regards to her relationship with the many Cleons, namely, can Demerzel reproduce? Why does she have sex with Cleon? Demerzel cannot reproduce. Let's just get that right out of the way. Her body is composed entirely of inorganic material, and she lacks a womb. She cannot incubate sperm, she cannot conceive, and she doesn't go through pregnancy like a normal human woman would. So why does she have sex with at least 2 Cleons that we know of? Well, it's one of the most conflicting things about her personality, which is the fact that despite not being human, Demerzel seems desperate to feel like one. In the Apple TV series, she often places her hands over her abdomen, which at first glance appears to be a sign of her true robotic nature. She's stiff in her movements, deliberate in conversation, and never does anything that isn't logical for the survival of the Empire. But if you look closer, her hands are always placed where the womb is supposed to be, and this might indicate that Demerzel suffers from the loss of not being able to conceive. Her dynamic with the first Cleon and all of his clones is a complex web of several different psychological complexes and syndromes, none of which are good in nature. She's a captive who hates her captor in the beginning, but then falls for him and starts longing for him in later years. She's supposed to be the mother figure of the Day she's caught having sex with, but she doesn't really treat him like her child, because Day has evolved to the point where he's his own man. The reason Demerzel keeps having sex when she really doesn't need to is largely driven by her programming, but a major part of it also includes her desire to have a true child. We say this because the first Cleon didn't create the genetic dynasty to be his successors, he freed Demerzel to become his true successor. Cleon the First was hopelessly in love with the robot he found in his basement and wanted to marry her and have kids with her, but because he knew that was impossible, he settled for letting her run his empire for the foreseeable future, while he continued to long for Demerzel from beyond the grave. This is one of the first signs that Demerzel isn't a robot anymore, at least not in the sense that we understand it, because her sentience has given rise to feelings that no robot in Asimov's story harbors. Well, one does, and it seems like her relationship with the Cleons is inspired by him. In The Robots of Dawn, R. Daniil Olivaw once went on a mission with Elijah Bailey to solve the unique crime of roboticide. It just so happened that one of Daniil's robotic cohorts, named R. Jander Panel, killed itself on the planet Aurora. The investigative team was brought in to determine whether Panel's creator was the one who murdered it, because by his own admission, he was the only one who could do so, and yet he claimed innocence. During the investigation, it was revealed that Panel was the sexual partner of one of the inhabitants of Aurora. In fact, he was more than that, because she considered him to be the husband she'd never had, after a string of failed relationships. This woman was treated as the prime suspect of the roboticide, but in the end, it was revealed that the leader of the Auroran School of Robotics engineered all of it to acquire a humaniform robot with which he wanted to create a discrete army to take over the universe. While that last detail might not be the motivation behind Demerzel having sex with the Cleons, the story of R. Jander Panel is undeniably the source of this particular plot thread. Now that we've spoken at length about Demerzel's physical aspect and abilities, let's go to her mind, because it's perhaps even more fascinating than the rest of her.
I am not!
I'm sorry.
A positronic brain in an undying body. Demerzel's software explained. Demerzel's mind is perhaps the most advanced in the Galactic Empire because she is, in essence, a living quantum computer. Asimov wrote the robot series a long time before such computers were invented, so he called his robots' minds positronic brains. This word seems to have its roots in the word posit, which in essence means putting forward arguments that are made to feel factual in nature. It fits the overall theme of the robot series perfectly because it's often assumed that robots are completely logical beings, and therefore, whatever they put forth as an argument must also be logical. But Asimov wrote his works in the mid-20th century, and times have advanced far beyond the need for such simple words. In today's world, quantum computers that resemble his positronic brains are real, and so that's what the showrunners go with. Demerzel is able to use her quantum mind to perform computations that would require several years with a standard computer within seconds. And that's probably one of the reasons Harry Seldon gives her the prime radiant in the show. She has the ability to compute almost everything in existence, from geology to physics to even metaphysics, as you'll see in a few moments. And the nature of her mind isn't restricted to its position within her body. Demerzel's brain is decentralized, meaning it lives within her circuitry even when her head is destroyed. This is why hitting her with a headshot is useless, because her body will keep functioning with the same operational capacity. She's also able to withstand the adverse effects of a jump drive, which makes space folding possible in Apple TV's Foundation, purely because she's a mechanical being. For the human mind, the experience of space folding is too much to endure when they're awake, because the sheer amount of information their minds will have to process will scramble their brains. But for a living computer like Demerzel, processing that vast amount of information within seconds is possible, which allows her to stay awake during space jumps assisted by a jump drive. And this isn't her only superpower, because Demerzel is one of the first living entities to have acquired the power of a mentalic, which primarily includes telepathy and the ability to alter another person's memories. In the show, the Mentalics are a race of humans who have seemingly evolved to become the ultimate psychological weapon in history. They can use their powers to control those around them and change their memories as they see fit. But in the novels, Mentalics developed through robots whose brains were capable of cerebroanalysis. In the short story called Liar, humanity had developed a robot called RB-34, or Herbie for short, which demonstrated the shocking ability to read other people's thoughts. This was done by the process of cerebroanalysis, which involved robots like Herbie using the electromagnetic fields emitted by living cells within the human brain to accurately analyze and predict their thought processes and behavior. Herbie was created as an accident, according to Liar, but his power was real, and it was intentionally passed down to other robots and eventually humans. Given the fact that Demerzel has seemingly deleted the memories of every Cleon after the first, it stands to reason that her brain is capable of cerebroanalysis, which is the foundation of the Mentalics from Foundation. This was confirmed in Asimov's works, where Ardenil received the Mentalic abilities of another robot shortly before its death, but the series is yet to confirm such a thing. Another aspect of her existence that makes her such a unique figure is the encoding of the 3 laws of robotics, because despite possessing the ability to adapt her computational framework based on the data she receives, those 3 laws are something she can never violate. You can say that they're hard-coded into her system, and yes, we know we're not addressing a specific incident from the series here, but have patience, we'll explain that as well soon enough. For this section, we wanted to focus on how her quantum mind plays with the rest of her anatomy, and we feel like we've done that quite well. Now that we have that out of the way though, let's now go on to 2 of the most burning questions about Demerzel as a person, because she certainly sees herself as one, and these questions will attempt to unravel why that's the case. How does Demerzel in Foundation have a soul? The possession of a soul is one of the most profound metaphysical questions of the world. What is consciousness if not a set of electrical impulses that are created by the firing of neurons? What is an identity if personalization is a belief humans create based on their experiences, which technically are similar all across the board? We live, we eat, we bathe, we defecate, we fornicate, we love, we hate, and ultimately, we die. The question of a spirit is integral to the plot of Apple TV's Foundation because, as it turns out, clones don't have souls according to the faith called Luminism. And interestingly enough, Demerzel is a fierce believer of this religion. Luminism is a school of thought that espouses the endlessness of the human soul. It talks about the triple goddesses created from the collision of celestial bodies and says that the foremost of them, the Mother, took the line of fate and reshaped it into a circle. She did this because, originally, souls would cease to exist alongside their mortal vessels, but doing so also stifled humanity's infinite potential for growth and evolution. By reforming this idea of a linear life into a circular one where reincarnation was possible, the Luminists believed that humanity would keep growing indefinitely, and it seems as though this idea was what drew Demerzel to Luminism. We've already spoken about how she seems to want to lead a human life despite hating humans secretly, and it would make a lot of sense if that's the foundation of her faith. Demerzel believes in reincarnation because she wants her next life to be that of a person's, not a machine to be used and abused, but that doesn't fully explain the reason she has a soul. Maybe what we say next will, because if it's true that the Foundation series' robots are fully sentient beings with individuality, then it is quite possible for them to possess a soul, the most individualistic metaphysical concept that exists in human history. In fact, this was confirmed for her when she undertook the ritual of visiting the spiral on the home planet of Luminism, and was granted a vision upon drinking from the womb of the Mother. The details of this vision are scarce, and it's even possible that she was lying, but we don't think she was. Demerzel's deference to Luminism is as real as it can get. When Cleon offers her to assassinate one of its priestesses, she hesitates greatly, for it conflicts with her faith. And if reincarnation is possible for a soul, even a robot's, then maybe that's where the explanation for human mentalics like Gal Dornick comes from. Consciousness has within it the ability to change the world, and mentalic powers are nothing more than a highly precise observation and manipulation of the electromagnetic fields within the mind. At least, that's what cerebroanalysis claims, and if true, then it's no surprise that a robot in this series has a soul. Maybe Demerzel herself is the reincarnation of someone that was born way before she was created, which is a question we suspect will be answered by the time Foundation comes to an end. But having said that, let's address the final question of this video about her anatomy, which is, How can Demerzel kill humans if she obeys the 3 laws of robotics? Can she kill herself? The lifelong struggle of Demerzel is the fact that she's bound by the 3 laws of robotics. She cannot intentionally harm humans or allow them to come to harm because the laws specify that. To make things worse, when she was given her freedom by Cleon I, he also installed a chip in her system that bound her to his will for eternity because Cleon basically replaced the word human from the 3 laws with the word empire. Demerzel then lived solely for the glory and continuation of the empire, and her first duty was to protect the empire itself. Since Cleon was the empire, she's gone out of her way to keep him alive, even when he gives her hateful orders, because she can't disobey her programming. Even so, we've seen Demerzel kill Cleons before, so how is that possible if she isn't supposed to kill humans and is supposed to defend the Empire? Sure, one could argue that Cleon I's chip overrode her ability to kill humans by making Empire her first directive, which is what has allowed Demerzel to assassinate people, but why did she kill Cleons herself? The answer to that lies in the 4th law of robotics that she developed herself, aka the Zero Law. The Zero Law is a commandment that essentially negates all other laws of robotics. It states that a robot cannot, through their actions or inaction, allow humanity as a collective to perish. What this basically means is that it gives Demerzel carte blanche with regards to killing people, even in service of the Empire, because her goal now is to protect an ideal, not a person. Violation of the 3 laws won't cause her to shut down because of the Zero Law, and indeed, Demerzel is quite adamant in enforcing the Zero Law throughout the series. But there is one way in which she can be killed, which is hitting her peak when it comes to evolution. In the books, our Daniil Olival lived for close to 20,000 years, and in that time, it updated both its hardware and software. But as its body became more complex and durable, its mind became more complex and less durable. Daniil's first mind lasted for 10,000 years, but its last mind only lasted for about 600 years. This deprecation in its processing unit was what ultimately led to his demise, and it's quite possible that this might happen to Demerzel too. But if it doesn't, then there is another way in which this can occur, which is when she faces a computational decision so complex that she short-circuits herself. There is precedence for this in Asimov's series, where robots have become defunct because the decisions they made in order to protect humanity ended up causing them even more pain and suffering. This is how the first Mentalic robot Herbie died in Liar, because it wasn't able to reconcile the fact that the lies it told to preserve people's love for one another ended up making them hate each other. Considering her actions to date, the possibility of Demerzel going through a similar shutdown when her directive to protect the Empire goes against her actions for the Empire. For now, though, this is purely speculation because we have no idea which direction Apple TV will head with Foundation. They've made several changes to established canon already, even with Demerzel, and many more are bound to be coming. But if Demerzel's death is inevitable, it will most likely occur when the Zero Law fails to work in the face of an extinction-level threat to the Empire, and by extension, all of mankind. Based on her actions so far, perhaps that would be for the best.
I am not.
I'm sorry.
Marvelous verdict! But as for this video, we're afraid that's all we got for you guys. Let us know your thoughts on the unique anatomy of this fascinating humaniform robot in the comments section down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Foundation content. We'll see you guys real soon, so until then, stay safe, and remember, if you find a woman dismembered and still conscious in your father's basement, leave her alone, because she will make the next few centuries utterly miserable for you.